Church officials routinely and purposefully described the abuse as horseplay and wrestling and inappropriate contact. It was none of those things. It was child sexual abuse.
1 year ago, Pennsylvania released a statewide grand jury report on child sexual abuse in the Catholic Church.
The report detailed abuse of more than 1,000 children by more than 300 predator priests and other Catholic leaders.
This report was absolutely a game changer, absolutely. I think it's a warning shot across the bow of every employer in the state of Pennsylvania, right? That the days of turning a blind eye to the violence done against kids are over.
To extend in my own name and in the name of the Diocese of Harrisburg my profound sorrow at the experience that the survivors of sexual abuse have experienced in the Church.
In the last year, the report's findings have led to statute of limitations reform across the country. But so far, nothing has been passed in Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania didn't do the best they could. They need to get back in there and work on it.
The mission of this WGAL News 8 Chronicle, Priests, Payouts, and Precedents, is to highlight the recommendations made by the grand jury report, to highlight what action has been taken in the last year, and the impact the report's release has had on victims' lives and the Catholic Church.
The survivors of sexual abuse in the Catholic Church are many. They bear the scars from abuse at the hands of trusted members of their faith.
And for many, Pennsylvania's grand jury report increases awareness of abuse, letting survivors know they are not alone.
When Mike McDonald looks back on his childhood, the flashes of happiness and laughter are clouded by a darkness that was forced upon him and never lifted.
Who do you see when you look at that kid?
Scared to death, 11-year-old, 12-year-old. Scared to death.
That's how he says he grew up, a broken child, betrayed by the men he was taught to trust, his devout Catholic faith used against him.
Who wants to talk about a sexual experience they had with the Catholic priest? Nobody. So you felt completely violated and literally sick to your stomach almost on a daily basis.
Diana Vitosic grew up the same uncomfortable way, years of agony that lingered long after the physical and mental abuse she had endured had stopped.
The heartache and the raw pain, it was very difficult for me to come out from under that. And I crashed for a while, and it was a lot of days just crying in bed.
It took Diana decades to find the strength to share her story publicly. It took Mary McHale decades to sum up the strength to tell anyone. But finally she did.
I thought I was the only one. You know, everyone always thinks they're the only one, you know.
She recounted to police her horrid memories of being abused by a priest at her Catholic high school. And as it turned out, she was not the only one.
I feel like this institution kept these secrets, and they still continue to keep secrets, but I believe like the grand jury report was the first step in allowing those secrets to get out.
For the first time, we can begin to understand the systematic cover-up by church leaders.
The secret's out now.
Those secrets laid out in detail for the first time for the public to read. 884 pages of allegations of abuse within the Catholic Church across Pennsylvania, and the revealing of what's alleged to be a systematic cover-up by senior church leaders. It's the product of a 2-year grand jury investigation in Pennsylvania that sent shockwaves through the Catholic Church in the United States and all the way to the Vatican. And Diana Vitosic's story of abuse is spelled out in it for all the world to see.
It's been a lot of ups and downs. It's been a rough year.
She came forward reluctantly. But through the grand jury report, she says she found a way to take her power back from a priest and a church that she accuses of robbing her of her childhood.
I didn't realize how much they knew. And the fact I didn't realize how many he had abused before me and then for decades after me. And it was just heartbreaking.
Diana says her abuse started before the first bell rang on the first day of 9th grade at Central Catholic High School in Reading. She says a priest at the school, the Reverend James Gaffney, singled her out, knowing she was depressed from her parents' recent divorce and was vulnerable.
It was a lot of shuffling and kids in the hallway trying to find their way to homeroom and all of that. And we were on a crowded staircase, and he approached me, and I didn't even really know him. And there was a nun there, and he put his arm around me and said, "Don't we make a cute couple?" to the nun. And that was really the beginning.
Diana detailed for the grand jury memory after memory of Father Gaffney abusing her. First, forcing her to talk with him about sexual things, then exposing himself to her one night in his school office, and ultimately forcing himself onto her sexually over and over again. Diana says the abuse went on for 3 years, and she did anything she could to numb the pain.
I was like drinking to get through my days at that school. I hated that school so much. And I was drinking. I was taking like vodka from my mom's liquor cart and putting it in an old hairspray bottle and just hitting that all day at school in the bathroom. But I was a real mess at that point.
When she could not take it any longer, she says she told the school's principal and another priest about the abuse. Not long after, Father Gaffney left the school.
There he is.
But it wasn't until 27 years later, last summer, when Diana was reading the grand jury report, that she came to realize the extent of the abuse allegations made against Gaffney. The grand jury subpoenaed him, and he sat down for testimony twice. According to the report, Gaffney admitted to sexual contact with at least one female student. And then it reads, he was reminded he was under oath and was asked if he had sexual contact with any other student as a priest. He answered, yes, it is possible.
I just broke down. It was like finally admitting to what he had done. Just felt very validating. I felt like I finally had a voice through that grand jury report, where I had been squashed at every turn in the past. Like I finally had a voice.
But in the years since the report's release, Diana, Mary, Mike, and other survivors of clergy sexual abuse feel their voices are being ignored.
Yeah.
Though they are still alive, neither Father Gaffney nor any of the other priests these survivors have implicated in their abuse are facing criminal charges. And because of the way state law is written, they cannot sue the priests or the church.
Will you stand up for these children?
For the last year, survivors have been raising their voices to change that law, to finally get justice after years of suffering from child sexual abuse. But as of now, it has not happened.
It's very frustrating to see how Pennsylvania is the epicenter for, with Cosby, Sandusky, and the Pennsylvania clergy abuse grand jury, and we've done nothing as far as the laws go, nothing.
WGAL News 8 attempted to contact James Gaffney for comment, but we cannot reach him.
The grand jury report recommended 4 changes be made to the state's statute of limitations for reporting child sexual abuse. Current legislation gives a victim until age 30 to sue an abuser. After that, no criminal charges can be filed. The grand jury's recommended changes are as follows: eliminating statutes of limitations for sexually abused children, a retroactive 2-year civil window for victims who could not file suits before, clarified penalties for continued failure to report child sexual abuse, and prohibiting non-disclosure and confidential agreements regarding cooperation with law enforcement. The State House has now passed reform legislation twice. Each time it has failed to come to a vote in the Senate.
Pennsylvania Attorney General Josh Shapiro oversaw the grand jury investigation. We sat down with him to hear his thoughts on what changes have been made in the year since the report's release.
The time for institutions to place their own interests above protecting our children is over.
1,000 victims, 301 predator priests and the names of those accused of covering up abuse are now public knowledge. Since the grand jury released its report of what they found happening within the Catholic Church, Pennsylvania's Attorney General Josh Shapiro is both hopeful and disappointed.
The fact that survivors are now being believed and heard, that we've set a model for law enforcement to follow, to listen to survivors, to hold big institutions accountable, to hold powerful people accountable for their abuse. I think that's been the biggest change.
What has yet to change?
The Republican leadership of the state Senate is leaving children exposed and less safe in Pennsylvania because they seem to want to take direction from the Catholic Church and their lobbyists and the Insurance Federation and their lobbyists instead of listening to the people. So I would say I'm inspired by the survivors and I'm disappointed in some of the leaders of the state Senate in Pennsylvania.
Of the 4 reforms the grand jury recommended, none have been carried out, which include statute of limitations reform. Shapiro wants lawmakers to eliminate criminal statute of limitations and open a civil window, which would give older victims an opportunity to sue the church. But so far, the measure has stalled in the state Senate.
Look, 23 grand jurors worked for nearly 2 years to come up with these reforms to ensure that something like this on this scale could never happen again. I think it's, the will of the people will win out over the will of the lobbyists who seem to, control the day in Harrisburg.
The Catholic Church has begun compensating these victims. Some of the victims aren't sure if they should take the money. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, look, I can't advise a survivor what to do, but I can tell you that it just further exacerbates the problem. It further continues the cover-up. I think what is clear from the grand jury report, and really what's been made clear and exposed over this past year, is that the church cannot be trusted to police itself. And these funds that they've put forth is just yet another example of how they're trying to be insular and how they're trying to protect their institution at all cost. There are people named in this report who were part of the cover-up, who are still bishops.
Bishop Ronald Gaynor of the Harrisburg Diocese was mentioned in the grand jury report about how he handled cases of accused priests after they were removed from the ministry. In a letter to the Vatican in 2014, the bishop asked to allow a priest accused of abusing a minor to live out his remaining years in prayer and penance without adding further anxiety or suffering to his situation and without risking public knowledge of his crimes. Gaynor has since said those words used were part of a standard form letter.
The evidence is also clear that folks like Bishop Gaynor went to court to stop this report from ever seeing the light of day. They lost, and the survivors won.
Since the release of the grand jury report, Shapiro says 1,862 people have contacted the clergy abuse hotline. 20 state attorneys general have opened their own investigations. The feds launched a grand jury probe, and the Vatican held a world summit and enacted new policies.
Look, I'm proud of the work that we did here in the Office of Attorney General. I'm proud of the example that we set for other states. But most importantly, I'm proud that we were able to give a voice back to these survivors, to give them the opportunity to be believed and heard.
WGAL News 8 reached out to the U.S. Attorney's Office about the status of that federal probe. They tell us the office cannot comment on ongoing investigations.
And as Lori mentioned, the grand jury report set a precedent, leading 20 attorneys general to open their own investigations into child sexual abuse in the Catholic Church. That's something one survivor says has had a profound impact on abuse victims.
Victims come forward when they think they may have an impact, right? They might protect another kid, and that's what the grand jury report says. You can have an impact. Your pain is not going to be ignored, and your sharing that pain is going to lead to concrete measures to keep kids safe.
17 states and Washington, D.C. have also passed laws extending or eliminating their statutes of limitations for child sexual abuse. Once again, Pennsylvania is not one of them.
Most recently, on August 14th, the one-year anniversary of the grand jury report's release, New York opened a one-year window reviving all expired claims. 4 other states and Washington, D.C. have also opened windows to file child sexual abuse claims this year. New Jersey will join the list when its revival law goes into effect on December 1st.
Coming up.
Apology for the fact that church leadership failed to do enough to prevent this and to remove this sad reality from the church in the past.
Bishop Ronald Gaynor of the Diocese of Harrisburg sits down with WGAL News 8 for a one-on-one on the impact of the grand jury report and the changes it has inspired in the diocese.